name is Lisa, and I'd like to welcome you to Callers Chat, an online space that I've created for callers to talk about all things calling. Today, I'm delighted to welcome Cat McGill to our stage. Now, Cat is a caller. She's sometimes better known under her maiden name, Cat Kelly. These days, though, you're more likely to find her hosting online gigs with Live to Your Living Room. Now, Cat is passionate about accessibility and inclusion. And that is very related to today's topic, where Cat will be talking about including dancers with learning and communication needs. So, without further ado, I'll hand over to Cat.
Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. So for those who don't know me, my name's Cat McGill. I used to call a lot under my maiden name of Cat Kelly. So some people haven't realised that Cat McGill and Cat Kelly are the same person. So just in case you're one of those, yes, it's me. Hi. My pronouns are she and they, and I am a white woman in my approaching my mid-40s, and I have slightly fading purple hair currently. And I am going to be talking to you about one of my favourite topics today, which is essentially communication. And with what is absolutely perfect timing, my son has just started shouting upstairs. So if you suddenly hear a very loud voice approaching, then do just excuse me for 10 seconds while I try and make him go away again. Okay, so as Lisa said, I'm talking about including dancers with learning and communication needs. It's something that I spend a lot of time kind of thinking about and doing. I mean, not specifically dancing, but the general topic of communication. So when I was kind of thinking about what I wanted to talk about today, I was thinking, do I go down the route of like a PowerPoint and have a thing I share? And then I kind of decided that I didn't want to do that. I just want to kind of talk from the heart and see what comes out. So I do have some notes, but they're on my phone because I couldn't make them work on my computer. So if you see me looking down, I'm not texting, I'm just checking my notes. So it's really distracting. He's shouting really loudly. I don't know if you can hear him. No, good. Okay, good. Yeah, he's anger management problems. It's fine. Okay, so essentially what I'm talking about when I think about including people with communication learning needs, what I start to try and think about is finding points that we have in common. When you're communicating with anybody that you don't know or that you don't kind of know how to communicate with, you start from a point of finding common ground. So that's what I've kind of based my talk around today. So the first thing I want to talk about is having a common vocabulary. So as dancers, well, I mean, I suppose as specialists in any subject or enthusiasts in any subject, you have a common vocabulary, don't you, that you kind of that you use, and it makes understanding quicker, it makes conversations quicker. So if you were to take like a room of Playford dancers and you were to say set and turn single, they wouldn't have to ask, they would chances are they would just know what to do. Likewise, if you I mean, I don't know any other specialist terminology, but I'm sure Lisa could tell you something about a boat terminology or something. And do you know what I mean? We have these shortcuts for kind of that we've developed as a social group that let us communicate a very specific concept in a very short amount of time. And that's essentially what we're trying to do with callers as well. When you're teaching dancing, you're trying to communicate a very specific concept in the most efficient way possible. And so you will probably know from experience of perhaps you're in a room with people who haven't done a lot of dancing, a lot of Kaylee dancing or a lot of social dancing before. They don't have the same shared vocabulary. So you have to find other ways of accessing the same information and of sharing the same information. And when you think about people with learning and communication needs, you just have to sort of take that a step further, because they don't have a shared vocabulary in terms of dancing, but they potentially also don't have as much of a shared vocabulary just in terms of communication as you're thinking about. And sometimes it can be the smallest things that we don't think about. I remember seeing a caller once. I don't even know when it was or who it was, but I remember a caller asking the audience to take hands or even just to take hands, and people are kind of like, take my hands where? And so those little shortcuts that we just, especially if you've grown up with them, if you've grown up dancing, there's little shortcuts that we take for granted. You have to really, really think about what that actually means. What do those words mean? Another one that is great for confusing people is swing your partner, because people just kind of do this. So the very first thing that I do when I'm preparing to call a dance for people with additional needs or communication needs is I try and break every single concept down into the most straightforward, simplest way that I can. One really good example of that is I don't tend to use the phrase find a partner. So I would say go and find a friend to dance with. And it's the simplest thing, but it can make the difference between somebody just getting it and not. And I might then, if I needed to, I might say, okay, this friend that you're dancing with, they're going to be your partner for this dance. So you're dancing with them, and you're dancing with other people, but they are your partner. So they're your person to stay with during the dance, something like that. But kind of, you have to like think down to the sort of the simplest form. You have to keep breaking it down until you get to the simplest form. I also sometimes, I know I mentioned in the write-up, I sometimes use Makaton signing to support calling. And there's a risk that you think, oh, well, I can't do any signing because I have to know all the signs and I have to be able to do it all properly. But actually, you think about the purpose of what you're doing, and the purpose of what you're doing is to communicate as most straightforwardly as possible. And so if I'm in a room with a group of kids with learning needs, there's no point me even if I could sign fluent BSL, there's no point me signing fluent BSL at them, because they won't get it. What I need to do is I need to think of what we have in common, what their points are that I can jump onto. So like I use the sign for friend, which is like, it's not actually up here, but I'm doing it up here so that you can see it. So I'll use the sign for friend just to reinforce that point. I'll say, go and find a friend to dance with. And something like that. So you're always thinking about what's the next level, so how can I make it simpler? Part of that is also about the dances themselves. So when you are working with people with communication needs, you need to add in the processing time. So you need to add in the time for them to think about what you've said, for them to think about what their reaction is going to be, and then to do the reaction. So I would tend to cut about half of my figures in a dance out. So if the dance has, say, a right-hand turn and then a left-hand turn, then I'll probably just do one. Because by the time we've thought about it and we've kind of got back to where we started and we thought about what we're going to do next, then you'd need that thinking time. And there's other ways of doing it. You can just kind of do it all and then let the music go out of sync, and it doesn't, just have the music as sort of background. But the way I do it, I like to talk to them about when the music tells you to go the other. I like to use the music to cue, because actually, particularly a lot of kids or young people who don't have a lot of verbal communication will respond to the music, and they can tell when the music is telling them to go back the other way and stuff like that. So you don't always have to use words. You can let the music kind of support that as well. The second thing that I was thinking about is, so we've talked about having like a common vocabulary, but also I was thinking about shared experiences and ways that you can use an experience that they might have had to sort of cue them in to something. So what I mean by that is thinking about things like, if you're in dances where you've got pairs or where you've got like numbered couples who are going to do things like first it's the ones do something, then the twos do something else. Instead of using numbers, I would think about something like cartoon characters. So like for my son who's currently shouting upstairs, it would be Peppa Pig. And I would say, right, who's going to be Peppa and who's going to be George? And then you get them all sort of like, right, okay, all the peppers go into the middle and then do a big, and you kind of like, you build it around what they know and what they can relate to. And not only do they enjoy it more, they get it quicker and they understand quicker. And they, kids always have experience of pretending to be characters and pretending to be things. So you're using that to play into how you communicate with them. And we do this all the time, communicating with anybody and everybody, but we just don't always realize that we're doing it. And with something like Kelly dance calling, we don't always realize that we're allowed to, because you kind of like, there's rules, aren't there? You're supposed to get it right, and you're supposed to, like do your right hand turn in the right place, and I just can't be doing with any of that. Like, if you're having fun, that's that's the most important thing. That's a win for me. So if I have to do the Circassian circle with a bunch of kids going into the middle and oinking like Peppa Pig instead of clapping their hands, then that's what we do. The third thing that I want to talk about was kind of shared space, a shared kind of inhabiting the space that you're in the dance room, and using that to orient you in the dances. So we often use phrases like top couple or like look up to the top. If I've got a group of people with communication needs, then I would say something like, who's closest to the band in your group, people who's closest to the band. So I'm going to call you the top couple, and then just take that extra step of sometimes it's hard to think of yourself in a group, in a category of something. So people wouldn't necessarily go, they won't necessarily opt in themselves to say, oh yes, I'm in the red team today, or I'm in the blue team. You have to right, if you're standing over here, then I'm going to call you the red team, and all of you are red team. And when I say red team, that means all of you guys. You have to sort of cue them into it. But I would use sort of physical concrete things. So I would use doors, windows, like what is there in the room that I can use to orient them? Is there a picture on the wall, or is there something interesting to look at that I can say, everybody turn and look at that picture, or turn and look out the window, and get them in the right direction. I would also think about things like, so it's a bit of a crossover with the common vocabulary like I was talking about, but I was thinking about the concept of like right and left. So in terms of kind of geographical space, a right is a thing and left is a thing, but they're not concrete things that you can hold. And so if I want to teach a group of people to do a right hand turn, how do I do that without, when they don't know their right from their left? So what I tend to do is I tend to incorporate a wave. So I'll just say, if we're going to do a right hand turn, the first thing that we'll do is we say wave at your partner, and however many % of people are right-handed, so they're almost certainly going to wave with their right hand. And then I say, then you take your waving hand and you stretch it out towards your partner, and you grab hold of their waving hand, and then you've got your turn. Then you dance around holding hands with each other. And then for the left hand turn, you go back the other way. And if they've done a left first and then a right, doesn't really matter, the grand scheme of things. If I've got a group that I really need to slow things down, I won't include a left. I will just do a wave and a turn, and then that will be it. But yeah, just kind of really thinking about how can you anchor them How can you take what is effectively an abstract concept like rightness or leftness, and how can you anchor it to something concrete in the room or on themselves or in their space that they can understand and that they can latch on? And how can you do it so that they can latch onto it quick enough to be able to dance? Because you don't want them thinking every time you're calling a dancer, you don't want them thinking, right, what's my right? Which one's my right hand? And you want to give them something that they can just cue into and respond to. So the wave works really well for that. And yeah, then kind of thinking about adding it into a dance. So like Jane and I used to do at our special needs case, we used to do buttered peas quite a lot, didn't we? And so instead of it's a shake hands, isn't it? Or is it? Yeah. So we would just add a wave at the beginning of that and do a wave and a shake. And it just flows because they know what they're doing.